the Tony Tone Deaf experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the world's wokest warrior, primitive-sided, toxic fanboy, aligned with the like-minded, Tony Tone Deaf, rockin' with you. I want to welcome one and all to the Clown World Review. How is everybody doing out there today? Happy Nintendo Direct Day. Nintendo had their presentation earlier, their knowledge tree, announced all kinds of new games, including a new Metroid game, a new 2D Metroid game, Metroid Dread, supposedly the first 2D game in 19 years. I can't believe it's been that long. Shin Megami Tensei 5, Fatal Frame, Doom Eternal, the Ancient Gods Part 1, Tony Hawk 1 and 2. So many different games were announced, but most importantly, it's Zelda's 35th anniversary. Now, they didn't go too hard, disappointed me a little bit, but how can you complain about a Zelda Game & Watch, which I will be getting? I want to get a few of those. You know, we've got Skyward Sword coming in about a month from today. Happy about that. I played through that game when it first came out, and then I recently played through it a couple, probably my least played Zelda game, but I played through it about a year and a half ago. God, that game consumes batteries, man. So I'm happy it's coming to the Switch. I'm happy I'm going to be able to use the Joy-Cons. We'll see how it plays in handheld mode. I never minded the motion controls much, and it seems like the Joy-Cons have improved on that, so I'm going to enjoy playing it docked, but let's see how those controls work, you know, in the handheld mode when you're using the joystick. Or I don't think I quite have the concept of it yet. I'm gonna have to sit down and play with it to get that, but either way, Skyward Sword looked beautiful. Most importantly, we got some news on Breath of the Wild 2. Now, they're striving for a 2022 release date. That's what they advertised on the trailer. Eiji Aonuma mentioned they're striving for 2022, and you know, Zelda's had some issues with delays in the past. Let's hope that's not the case with this game, because it looks amazing, and I definitely have some thoughts and predictions on it coming up here. What this is my first in-depth trailer breakdown for any game, so I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, all the fun YouTube stuff. Help me grow. I just hit 150 subscribers. That means the world to me. We're less than a year old. We're trying to produce the best content we can, and what can I say? I'm a Zelda fan. So let's jump into this. The first scene in the trailer is what looks like tentacles of malice reaching out in what's too hard for me to tell, but resembles the conditions of a blood moon, before we get a jump cut of more malice enveloping Link's right arm. We cut back to the original scene, and the malice begins to form some sort of crown-like shape, and we get another jump cut to a mummified Ganon with glowing reddish-yellow eyes. To me, the King of Darkness looks worse for wear, and though he may have been resurrected, he hasn't exactly been revitalized. He's in rags and what looks to be cuffs on his right arm. I tried to compare it to previous Ganons in the series to verify whether we've seen this version before, but nothing seemed to match those, or what I could make of his sword hilt on his left side, and the quality isn't the best here, so I could be mistaken, but I took some time and looked into it, and I do think this is a new version of Ganon. I know there was a rumor going around, maybe it's the Twilight Princess version, and if it is, that's awesome. I love the connectivity, but there are certain things on this Ganon that look unfamiliar to me, but only time will tell. We go back to the Malice as it expands and becomes more aggressive, and as a side note, after 2 years of watching,
Zelda has a short hairstyle, maybe she will be playable.
Turn into
Zelda is, and has been, nothing but a damsel. It's time for her to be playable. I mean, the name of the series is Legend of Zelda!
Basically insinuating that Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto are toxic sexists, instead of trusting them to bring another masterpiece into our lives and into our hearts. Yeah, it was around this time I noticed several YouTubers in their reactions to the trailer shout out that this was going to be Zelda's game as the Malice was consuming Link's arm, and actually I believe the Malice consuming Link's arm may have something to do with the main mechanic of the game, which we'll get to later. But as for Princess Zelda, she's consumed by a dark abyss, and unfortunately is only referred to throughout the remainder of this trailer. And look, I'm all for Zelda being playable in some capacity and in some games, and if she is playable in this sequel, then great. I just wish fans knew when to speak out and when to be patient sometimes. There has been a lot of pressure from greater YouTubers than myself telling the development team how to create their sequel when we haven't the slightest clue with what they have in mind yet. Those are my thoughts anyways. So into the darkness we go, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Here we get a great homage to Skyward Sword with Link free-falling through the clouds of Hyrule to reveal floating islands of land throughout the kingdom. I'm not sure what he's wearing here, but this looks to be towards the beginning of the game, unless this potato sack has some killer buffs to it. And you can see his right arm in this scene, and it's the same arm enveloped by the Malice, and it has some type of marking or some type of gauntlet on it, but I think this definitely has something to do with the main mechanic and with that Malice consuming his arm earlier. And in the next shot, we see the return of his Paracel, but Link's right arm is shadowed when I tried to get a better look at the markings in this scene. Link is also now equipped with a bow and arrow, possibly a sword, and a worn shield with a Sheikah eye that I don't remember seeing in Breath of the Wild, but I think it looks pretty cool. The camera pans and reveals more floating islands throughout the sky. So the scene switches to a beautiful shot of Link running through a field that is either still grounded or it's a lower elevated platform compared to some of the other islands in the sky. We get a quick shot of this thing, and I'm not sure if it's a new above ground mini-boss. It looks either Sheikah or Yiga made, or maybe some other type of guardian. I'm not sure what the symbol towards the middle of it right here means either. I just know that I want to kill it. And there's also this cool looking structure here that we're going to refer back to here in a little while. And you know, side note, I cannot wait to explore all of this. I'm so excited to see what they're doing with Hyrule. The next scene definitely looks like Link is grounded, or at least parasailing there. We get a gorgeous, wide, and expansive shot of Hyrule filled with Death Mountain in the background, and it looks like this is Link's first change of clothes in gameplay, with him losing the potato sack for what looks like the champion's tunic. Link parasails down to an enemy outpost with red bokoblins, which is revealed to be built atop a stone talus. As the talus rises, the camera pans around to reveal dueling peaks, and I'm sure some aficionados out there will be able to pinpoint exactly where in the map this is. To me, it looks like it's in central Hyrule Field, somewhere between the tower and Hyrule Castle. The scene flashes to a right hand glowing the same color of bluish green that the luminous stones would shine in Breath of the Wild. And the gauntlet around the arm and hand looks comparable to the markings we saw on Link's arm earlier as he was free falling through the clouds, but it's the fingernails that throw it off for me. Could this be some type of possessed arm on Link, or possibly Ganon beginning to revitalize his body? At the top of the screen, you can make out a bit of clothing and skin, so I'm going to go with Link for now, but this is very interesting. And if it is a possessed arm, whose arm is it? Does Link have a piece of Ganon with him, or is that somebody else's arm? So the scene cuts to Link using some type of stasis stemming from his right arm against a few enemies, before the scene switches again to Link fighting what looks to be a dungeon boss with some type of puppy dog flamethrower attached to his left arm. And I'm wondering, maybe this power is ambidextrous, or maybe this is a dungeon item, or some type of external tool that Link uses along with the power coming from his right arm, which I do think is the main mechanic in the game. I don't think there are any Sheikah slates, maybe there are, but it feels like he's using the stasis rune and other runes through his right hand now, which again is very interesting. I want to see exactly what Nintendo have planned. Maybe the Sheikah built this type of gauntlet and it's powered by luminous stones. Why would he use it in the first place? Where did they find it? 2022? Truly, it can't get here quick enough. And then we're gonna beat that and have to wait another 5 to 7 years to see what happens next. Good times. So moving on, we get a quick clip of a puddle of water being manipulated into a single droplet, which could possibly be one of Link's abilities in the game as well, and that's literally all it shows, before cutting to what I believe is Link using one of the gateways or waypoints throughout Hyrule in order to transport him up into the islands in the sky. At least at first, while he's still powered down, until he finds some other way to get up there. I don't know if loft wings are going to be in the game or some other tool, but he's got to be transported up there somehow, so that's what I think it's about when he goes through that solid rock foundation through the earth and onto the top of that platform. And he's wearing the potato sack again in this clip, which makes me believe this is very early on in the game. And honestly, I'm sure all the footage we have seen so far has been from the first third or fourth of the game, but that's just a hunch. So anyway, Link goes through that solid rock foundation and he lands in front of the same structure we caught a glimpse of earlier while discussing that possible Sheikah-built guardian or mini-boss. Yeah, this thing right here. You can see the same type of pillars, light posts, and materials are used for both structures, which leads me to deduce that at minimum, this is on the same island, but it's probably the same building. Beyond the structure is another glorious view of both above and on the grounds of the kingdom. If I had to guess, this is the Ridgeland region due to the mushroom-like platforms near the Mija Roki Shrine in Breath of the Wild. You know, when you had to stand on the platform in nothing but your undies when the blood moon passed by, right? And you got that shrine and all those mushroom-shaped platforms, which kind of remind me of the first Mario, if we're being honest. But it looks like Link is looking down on that due to, if you can see down here towards the bottom of the ground, those look like those mushroom-shaped platforms. And on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, if you can see that, it sort of looks like the Colosseum. And I'm not the best with all my geography in Hyrule, I just know it's somewhat in the same area, so I do believe we're looking out at Ridgeland, maybe kind of towards Gerudo or somewhere in that area. I don't think we're looking up towards Tabantha though, I was looking for the Rito village. But again, I'm no aficionado when it comes to Zelda geography, I try to do my best, but regardless, this shot is absolutely beautiful. Now, the ground looks somewhat barren here, but we can see all types of structures on the islands off in the distance. It makes you just want to run over there and explore, start knocking down the trees, start finding Korok seeds, or whatever they have planned for us in this sequel. I just know it's going to be great. So the scene fades to a gloomy-looking Hyrule castle with bad weather. We watch some malevolent red force rip Hyrule Castle out of the ground and fade to a distant shot where the castle is helplessly elevated above Hyrule Field. The sun is setting to a sorrowful violin rendition of Zelda's Lullaby before fading to black. Which leads me to ask, could we lose Princess Zelda in this game? To me, there was a lot of messaging in the final scene of this trailer. I mean, it's the final scene, it's usually important. And this is a trailer for a game that is supposedly going to be one of the darker titles in the series, if not the darkest. Something about that Last Shot, it doesn't sit right with me, and I believe dark times are ahead. If my theory is correct that the Era of the Wild was and is being set up to be a trilogy of 3 main games, this would be the dark second act of that trilogy. But killing off the princess would be darker than even what I expected. And I know it's sort of been done before with Twilight Princess, but who's to say she doesn't come back until the end of the 3rd game years from now, if she comes back at all? And what we saw in Twilight Princess was a self-sacrifice. Imagine if she was just violently ended or dropped in that abyss. I mean, that's kinda not the same as sacrificing yourself, and if she doesn't return through the rest of the game, even more so. And I'm not saying that I want Zelda to die. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. I think the balance between Ganon, Link, and Zelda is what makes the story so great. But Nintendo was telling us something with that final scene. And with her powers dwindling, as she referenced in the final scene of Breath of the Wild, who knows what the development team actually has in store for her. I'm hoping we will get the projected 2022 release date, but Nintendo doesn't have the best record of not delaying major Zelda games. So let's hope the sequel to Breath of the Wild is the exception to that common rule. So what did you think of the second teaser trailer to Breath of the Wild sequel? Were you surprised at the references and similarities to Skyward Sword? Do you think Zelda will still be playable after this trailer? Or do you want to complain that we didn't get a title reveal to the game yet? I'm tired of calling it Breath of the Wild sequel. I do want to complain. So please, let me know your comments, and please, don't forget to like and share this video. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. First game break... blah blah, words are hard. First game review breakdown, and I'm happy you were here to see it. Remember, they are not pop culture, they are agenda. We are pop culture. Have a great day.